Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Mend Hour. I am your host, Aman Ali, and it's a pleasure to be joining you once again on Ramadan Radio 97.8, 87.9 FM. Today, I've got a really fascinating show for you all, talking about a very important issue that all of us are aware of. And hopefully, today, we're going to learn a lot more about this issue, which is the Uyghur genocide happening in China. And today with me, I've got a very special guest. I'm actually very honored to have my guest with me today, who's going to speak about her story in regards to the connection with the genocide in China, and also talking to us about how we, as the Muslim community in the UK, can play a part in challenging what's happening globally, but also how we can apply pressure on the UK government in order to recognize the genocide which is happening in China. So without further ado, I want to introduce my very special guest. Rahima Mahmut is a Uyghur human rights activist. She's originally from a town called Gulja and has not been able to contact with her family in China since 2017. So she's also the project director of the World Uyghur Congress and also a key leader in the Stop Uyghur Genocide campaign. Rahima, assalamu alaikum and welcome to our show today. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. How is your Ramadan going so far?
It's good. It's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the month.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We're already, I think, 1 week into it, and how quickly rather time passes. We're already come to the end of the days of mercy. I want to thank you for coming on today, and because I think there's a unique story that you're going to share with us today, which I hope the listeners are going to benefit from. Because I think for many Muslims, we hear about what's happening in China. We hear about the atrocities and the persecution that the Muslims are facing, but it's very it's rare that we hear someone who's somewhat directly connected to what's happening over there, i.e. you have family over there, and you haven't unfortunately been in contact with them for a while now. So can you tell us a bit about your story that you have to share with us today?
Thank you. So I was born and brought up in a large religious and musical family in the city of Kholja. And my mother's side who are quite well-known musicians from my great-grandfathers. And my father's side, they're very religious. And so I'm very kind of lucky to be in that kind of family that, first thing in the morning, I woke up hearing or listening to my father's Quran recitation, and during the day, listening to my mother's songs while she's doing the housework. So all that kind of shaped me. I'm very much proud, to be Uyghur, and also proud of my culture, music, and traditions. I left my country in 2000 after witnessing 1997, the Gulja massacre, February the 5th. It was the 17th of Ramadan at that time, and a group of youth took to the street to demand cultural and religious freedom. Because prior to that, for 3 months, Chinese government carried out strike hard campaign against religion, arresting mainly male religious leaders, and specifically focusing on the young Uyghur clerics. And as you know, as Muslim, having these religious young imams and clerics is very important part of a Muslim culture and Muslim life. But the CCP government is very worried about the so-called Islamic terrorism or using this kind of Islamophobia to crack down on Uyghurs. And persecution against Uyghurs started from the time that China occupied East Turkestan, I call it, or the Uyghur region, or the China call it Xinjiang, the so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, since 1949. From the time 1958 rightist movement, then during the Cultural Revolution, and then starting from early 90s, again, the new wave of crackdown, lasted. Now we are talking about genocide. So I left my country in 2000 after that Hoja massacre that killed on that protest that day over 100 Uyghurs, peaceful protest, and then followed by mass arrest. 4,000 to 5,000 Uyghur, mainly young male, were taken away. And I had some my relatives and friends arrested aftermath of that protest. Then when I left in 2000, situation was already very difficult, difficult. It felt like you couldn't breathe freely. I was teaching in a college, and I could see regularly there are Chinese teachers sneaking into the class and listening to my lessons. And so since I left, I couldn't go back, because after I arrived here, I have been talking about the persecution. Who are Uyghur people? Because I realized not many people in the West even know the name of Uyghur. And
I speak to.
Despite this, over 10 million, we claim 20 million Uyghurs live in the region. And sadly, because we don't have our own country, so when people talk about China, you just think the Chinese people. But a lot of people know about the Tibetan struggle because of Dalai Lama, and they have this very good campaigners and campaign organizations in the West. And that's why people know about Tibetans. But the Uyghur struggle is exactly the same, even worse. The persecution against the Uyghurs, as I said, it started from the time the occupation, the communist government occupied in 1949.
So Rahima, I just want to ask a question. So I think for many of our listeners, they may have only heard about what's happening in China maybe in the last year or last few years, but it's really interesting to hear that this oppression has been happening for many decades. It's not just a recent phenomenon. It's been a occurrence which has been happening for many, many decades. You mentioned since the early 1940s. And for me, it has parallels with some of the oppression that we see in other parts of the world. It's not a recent phenomenon. Only in the West now we're hearing about it, but for individuals like yourself who've been directly affected, it's been almost your whole entire life that you've had to experience this oppression. Tell me, why is it that this government has this oppressive kind of policy towards the Uyghur Muslims in that region?
I would say paranoia.
Okay.
Because Chinese government, even the Chinese people, never felt they belonged to that region. Because the region, we are the indigenous people. Even in 1949, when it was occupied, only 4 to 5% Han Chinese people, and the rest are the Uyghur Muslims and other Turkic Muslims. So it's a very culturally, traditionally, and religion, Islam is, we are Turkic people, more common with Uzbeks, Kazakhs, and Tatars, and have nothing to do with the Chinese. We speak very different language. Even our writing is Arabic, And the indigenous people also felt that since the occupation, gradually the rights of the Uyghurs taken away in every way. So from 1958, the rightist movement started killing of the intellectuals, religious figures, wealthy people, although this happened throughout China, but because Uyghurs, we are very different, and because of the Islam as being our religion, so for the Chinese, for an communist atheist regime, they always had this very kind of racist attitude, deeply rooted racist attitude against the Uyghurs. They always called the Uyghurs are backwards because the people who believe in God, they are not, clever enough. Sometimes they even said, you have something wrong with your head, in your head. So even from primary school, some of my teachers even asked me that question. They said, how can you believe something you don't see? Things like that. So this is one of the very important fact that, the specifically the Uyghurs and other Muslims in that region particularly were targeted. Also because the resistance, the Uyghurs always resisted this occupation peacefully resisted this occupation because in 1955, the Chinese Communist government announced that the region is Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. So autonomy, that means that we have the self-govern and the self-determination rights. And we
so that was the Chinese government recognized that. So they recognized that they gave that autonomy historically. So it was something that the Uyghur kind of region and the people there were like, okay, you can autonomously have what kind of autonomy were you guys given on paper per se?
Well, I'm not an expert on the Chinese constitution, but the autonomy guarantees Uyghurs speak our own language and practice our religion, freedom of our religion, unless we become like Communist Party member, then you have to swear that you are not going to believe in God. But otherwise, and the priority, the job and everything has to be the people, the indigenous people come first. But this was only on paper. They have never honored, even though that was agreed, it was on paper, but it was never honored. So as I said, 3 years later, in 1958, the rightist movement started, and the mass killing started throughout China, and not just the East Turkestan. But so this is a historical, step by step, that trying to completely crush the Uyghurs, and they used the kind of soft power to assimilate Uyghur people during the Cultural Revolution and even during the 80s. But when they saw the revival of religion after the end of the Cultural Revolution, because the Uyghurs never gave up to be Uyghur.
So allow me to interrupt. So when you mentioned the Cultural Revolution, for many of the listeners, they may not be familiar with that concept or what might have occurred during that revolution. Tell us a bit about what was happening during that time.
So Cultural Revolution was led by Mao. I'm sure people must know him, Chairman Mao, and there is a dictator who killed many, many millions of people, including the Chinese. So the Cultural Revolution is to, in paper, it's to people to become, to throw away all the tradition, you become more progressive and so on. But in fact, it is a kind of way of killing off any kind of oppositions, any kind of influential people among the society, both among the Han Chinese society and also the in Uighur and the Tibetans. So I would suggest people to just Google Cultural Revolution. You will know more about it, which lasted until Mao died in 1976. And during this period, many millions were killed, and the worst hit regions are Tibet and the Uighur region and Mongolia, because of we have this very unique, different culture, language, and religion. And historically, also the Chinese government consider the like Mongolians, the Tibetans, and the Uyghurs are because we are historically outside the wall of China. Historically, there have been war, and so they always say the Turks are the barbarians. You know, they are the good fighters, and so we need to conquer them. And even after the colonization taken over, but they still had this kind of concept, and so always believed that the Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims are barbarians, or they can rebel. And so now what is happening is because they thought that by assimilation they can completely change the Uyghurs. Uyghur become atheist under the communist regime, but this didn't happen. And during the 80s and in the 90s, the revival of religion and culture, that kind of made the Chinese government become very fearful.
It wasn't part of the plan, was it? They didn't plan for that to happen. They tried to, as much as they can, repress it, almost have everyone assimilate to one uniform culture. And then when that failed, and you start, because people by their nature are not one. We're different. We're very in terms of, like you mentioned, the culture, the language, the food, the various kind of the lifestyles people live is different. You can't force people to live one lifestyle. So it's interesting. So you mentioned that after the project, Cultural Revolution finished, we saw the revival of kind of the Uyghur Muslims kind of invigorating their own culture, and that was clamped down upon again in the 90s.
Exactly. So like one very typical example was the 1997 the Golja massacre. The Golja massacre, and the people chose the 17th of the Ramadan on the 5th of February, took to the street to protest. And these most of those who were killed, who received a very heavy sentence, and then being arrested. Aftermath of that protest, mostly the practicing Muslims. They targeted them to crush. So this persecution didn't start from 2016 or 2017. This is a kind of building up period. And then in 2009, another protest in the capital of Urumqi, after there were a YouTube post posted by the Chinese how they killed several Uyghur factory workers in Guangdong province in Shaoguan city. And then Uyghur students led by the Xinjiang University students and protested on the 5th of July. And that was again a military crackdown. And then what happened was because many Uyghurs gunned down, peaceful protesters gunned down, and then some Uyghur, mainly young people, took this kind of said, we will revenge. You killed so many of us. We will revenge. And then they attacked the surveillance, the Chinese. Very first time in the history since the occupation, the Uyghurs went and to kill Chinese, and the state media reported about like 200 dead, but they didn't report thousands were gunned down and many thousands disappeared. So
it's amazing, isn't it? When you oppress a group of people or a community or a nation almost with 10 million, 20 million large population, and the moment they retaliate even once, they completely flip the story. That they completely kind of conveniently forget the entire period of oppression that occurred for decades. Rahima, one story I wanted to give an opportunity for you to share your personal story. In that, when I read about yourself, you mentioned how you've not been able to be in contact with your family for a number of years now, and I just wanted to kind of make it we've given the history and the context to this oppression and genocide which has been occurring for many decades, but the reality is it affects individuals as well. like yourself. And you mentioned how you've not been able to be in contact with your family for a number of years now. Tell us a bit more about why that has been the case.
Well, yes, even from when I was little, when my parents prayed, when my elder siblings prayed, they had to lock the gate from inside and always warned that don't tell other people that we prayed. So from young age, I know that how difficult the life for the Uyghur people. And after I left my country since 2000, I couldn't go back. I couldn't return because I know if I return, I would be imprisoned. And then at least I was able to speak to my sisters and my brothers. I have 9 siblings, a very big, very large families there. Up until 2017, from October 2016, no one answered my phone call. Suddenly, including all my friends, my sisters, my brothers, their children, no one answered my phone call. And New Year's Eve, I thought someone will answer the phone call. We normally say at least Happy New Year. Again, I couldn't get through to anyone. And on the 3rd of January, 2017, I called my eldest brother, who's my father figure to me. I called him again and again all day long, and finally he picked up his phone. So when I said, normally, Assalamu alaikum, even little children, when they pick up the phone, Assalamu alaikum. And my brother said, way. And at that time, actually, I learned that this word is banned. And I still didn't believe until when I heard my brother, who was imam in one of them, a big mosque.
So to communicate, the salam is banned. I didn't to say
Assalamu alaikum is banned. Assalamu alaikum is banned. Yeah. No one can say Assalamu alaikum. Many people arrested for using that word. And I didn't believe that until when my brother picked up the phone, said, wait, I was kind of, is that him? And then I said, why no one is answering my phone call? And he said, they did the right thing. And please leave us in God's hands, and we leave you in God's hands too. And that was the conversation we had. And since then, I don't know what happened.
So just so our listeners are clear, I mean, he's not said that because he doesn't want to speak to you. There's a clear reason. There's immense pressure and a security concern that he has. The reason why he said that to you, maybe you can elaborate on that a bit further?
Absolutely. The thing is, later I learned also from the leaked documents as well in 2019, also some of the Uyghurs managed to live in 2018 and 2019, very, very few managed to leave the country. And because I also work as an interpreter translator for BBC, and we made many documentaries and also ITV undercover inside China's digital gulag. We interviewed many Uyghurs, and some left the region in 2018 or early 2019. And that's what I learned, said that actually in 2016, the police went like door to door warning people that you don't answer any phone calls from abroad or don't make any phone calls to other countries, otherwise they are in trouble. And also one thing I would like to also explain, because this high-tech control, from 2016, the East Turkestan entire region became a police state. So the camera, no blind spot, and the phones are completely connected to the public security bureaus. So the Uyghurs also forced to download apps that can monitor their phone calls. Anyone who didn't download the spy app that the public security ordered them, and they were taken away as well. So because of this kind of very tight control, and they know that when they answer the phone, someone is listening there. or automatically the computer is recording and they will alert the police. So that was later I learned, and I knew my brother knew that the phone call was, someone is listening. And he took that risk, answered my call, because I have been calling him all day long. And so when I heard that they did the right thing, I know immediately if they did answer your phone call, they would have been taken away. So they did the right thing. And he said, leave us in God's hand, instead of telling me not to call us. And I know the word when he said it, I understood what he meant. And straight after that, then we learned that people were taken and just black hood over their head. Police either summoned people to the police station, say we need to have a word with you, and then they disappeared, or they were taken away from home. And I know there was one official, apparently, that when the entire adults of this family was taken away, there were young children, 3 children, and this official said, what is going to happen to these young children? And for asking that, he was also imprisoned.
I want to thank you for sharing what must be such a very difficult story to share. And I make dua that you're, despite the difficulties that the Muslims in Uighur are, I hope your family are safe, and that Allah removes this oppression from the Muslim community in China. Joining us now, so we're going to take a shift now in the discussion. And joining me now, I've got a colleague of mine from MEND, Zishan Ali, who's a senior policy analyst at MEND. And Rahima very kindly and very eloquently has given us a background to what's happening in China and the genocide that the Uyghur Muslims are facing. But we want to not just kind of learn about what's happening, but also learn about how we, especially in the Muslim community in the UK, can play a part in kind of bringing about awareness of this issue, but also bringing about pressure in order to change what's happening around the world. So Zishan, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum, how are you doing?
Walaikum assalam. Yeah, fantastic. Alhamdulillah.
Fantastic. So Zishan, as men, we've been doing a lot of kind of campaigning and raising awareness about what's happening in China in terms of the Uyghur genocide. In particular, there's some action that we've been encouraging in relation to tomorrow. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so obviously you've already mentioned men's been trying our best to do a lot of stuff over the last few months. Tomorrow in particular is a historic day because Parliament, the House of Commons, will be given an invaluable opportunity to debate on whether the persecution the Uyghur community and other minority communities are facing in Xinjiang province can be classed as genocide. And the evidence is quite clear-cut. The Dutch Parliament, the Canadian Parliament, the US administration, both Trump and Biden administration have already said it's genocide. So the evidence is incredibly clear-cut, but Parliament just hasn't had an opportunity before. But tomorrow we do.
Yep, and even our Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, he's issued a statement on this, hasn't he? What did he have to say?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Actually, it was exactly a month previous to the debate tomorrow, on the 22nd of March, that there were sanctions introduced by the UK government. And Dominic Raab actually was very clear-cut. Our Foreign Secretary said that the crimes facing the Uyghur community was worse, not since seen from the Second World War. They are the worst crimes of our modern humanity. And he himself said the evidence is clear-cut, that the crimes are horrific. They're being undertaken by systematic level.
Yeah. And Rahima, I know you've been quite heavily involved for a long time now in trying to get the UK government to recognize what's happening in China as genocide. This isn't the first attempt that we've had in trying to get the UK government to recognize what's happening in China as genocide. What other efforts have been taking place for around this particular issue, and what involvement has your organization had as well?
There has been other campaign. It wasn't the motion. It is a genocide amendment. We wanted to have an amendment. The court or the judicial body to assess and to declare it as genocide. But because of the obstacles that we faced, and now this motion will be the first time in the parliament. And so we have been number one priority of the Stop Uyghur Genocide is to raise awareness among the MPs about what is happening. So I think we have achieved that. Also through the genocide amendment vote 3 times in the parliament, no MPs can say that I didn't know about the Uyghur situation. And so I mean, with Zishan and many other communities, because Stop Uyghur Genocide is cross-party, cross-community campaign. So we have a very good campaigners, all volunteering and doing a lot of work. But we still have a lot to do, but we are doing our best to inform the government and also the wider public, reaching out to different communities to make them aware and calling them to join this movement and call it genocide, stop this genocide.
So Rahima, tell me, why is it? I mean, why is it so significant that the UK government recognize what's happening in China as genocide, and what potential impacts could that have?
Well, number one thing is, the Chinese government behaving like a bully, and because of its economic power on the world stage. And, many Muslim countries, many, even Turkic countries kept silence because of the dependency, the economic dependencies, and many Western countries as well. But recognizing it as genocide, it will affect the trade agreements, future trade deals. This is so important because when you know the reason why this CCP government is so confident, doing this, because they believe that the world doesn't care. The world don't know what is happening. They can just use their own lies and propaganda to brainwash or to kind of blind the whole world. But having the UK is one of the very important countries, and to recognize this along with the other countries, that can make a huge difference, because then I would believe more countries will join, like Australia and other countries will join to recognize. And in order to stop this genocide, first of all, we need international joint action, not just like singled out actions, joint action against China.
And I think we've seen historically with apartheid in South Africa, when nations come together and apply that pressure, then, and especially when economic considerations are on the table as well, it does apply pressure. And it's really important that our government in the UK, and we as Muslim citizens, not just Muslim citizens, anyone who recognizes that people have the right to life, have the right to freedom of all sorts of freedom, not just freedom of speech, but freedom to live, freedom of religion. All of these freedoms have been taken away. But not only that, they've been kind of killed in thousands. They've been systematic rape has occurred in this area. So it's not, there's no question about it. There's no discussion or debate to be had really. So Zishan, a question I want to ask and advice for our listeners. Tomorrow we've got this crucial debate that's taking place. What role can our listeners have in regards to that debate that's taking place tomorrow?
Yeah, so there are multiple things all listeners can do. And honestly, it's the bare minimum, considering what we've heard from Sister Rahima, considering what the Uyghur community is facing. Like these steps are minimal. We urge all listeners to get in touch with their MPs through social media. You can go on our website, men.org.uk. We have action alerts. We have draft statements, draft messaging that you can push out. And we're urging everyone to lobby their MP to vote in favor of this motion. like Sister Rahima said, like you said, the evidence is incredibly clear. There is a genocide happening. There's so much evidence for it. What we're looking for is an unequivocal statement tomorrow that Parliament believes that the Uyghur genocide is taking place. So yeah, do follow our action alert, contact your MP. You can contact them through email. You can tag them on our social media pages and follow all of the social media channels that we're on as well.
So Zishan, help me out. So I don't know who my local MP is. Where can I find out who my local MP is?
Excellent question. Again, if you follow our action alert, it will go through step by step. But if you want to find out your MP, there are a number of websites that do it for you, such as They Work For You, and you type in your postcode, very clear format, and you'll find out who your MP is. But again,
and if I go to the MEND website, I've got because I may not be very articulate, or I may not know how to word what I want to say to the MPs. But if I go to the MEND website, there's a template message there that I can take inspiration from. I can copy and paste or even add to that, my own personal words, and then send that to my MP, either via social media, so I can tweet them, saying that they should, in regards to tomorrow's debate, they should vote in favor of the motion, or I can email them as well.
Yeah, and both messages are provided, but obviously with such an emotive and horrific case, we are urging everyone to add their own voice to it as well.
Rahima, any call to action for our listeners in regards to tomorrow, or even beyond tomorrow, anything else that our listeners should be doing in regards to raising awareness?
Thank you. So tomorrow we also have a protest outside the Parliament Square, a socially distanced protest, just one message: call it genocide. It's time to call it genocide. And we would love people to join, just very peaceful, and call one message and ask our MPs to call it genocide. And this is the most important, and tomorrow, and we're hoping that it will pass with overwhelming majority. And we also have many different campaigns. Visit Stop Uighur Genocide. Follow me on Twitter. And we have genocide game, the Winter Olympic. And after this, we will be doing more, taking more actions on this, and also VW protest as well. And you can find all that information on Stop Uighur Genocide website. And MEND is doing this together, so you should also follow the MEND and visit their website. They will be also posting all the actions and the campaigns, the future campaigns that we will be having. And we also have Ben Chen campaign. Chen Quanguo is the party secretary, current party secretary, who actually executed this, implemented the current policies, genocidal policies, and who ruled Tibet 5 years before coming to East Turkestan. And so this man is not included in the sanction list. So we have a campaign called the Ban Chen campaign, Ban Chen Quanguo, and sanction him under the Magnitsky Act. So you can, if you visit the website, and we have many things that people can do without really spend a lot of time. Some just kind of petitions. You can just sign your name, and then you can share it with your friends, with people, and we need you. And also follow on social media, Stop Uighur Genocide, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Retweet whatever we post there. So just have more people can find out what is happening and what actions we are taking.
Yeah, and I think, we mentioned it earlier, I think Zisha mentioned it, that it's the minimum that we can do. We know that as an ummah, we're one body. When one part of the body hurts, we all feel the pain. And we have a responsibility as being part of members of the global ummah, that we have whatever evil that we see, if we can change it with our hand, we change it with our hands. If we can't do anything with our hands, if we can speak out against it, then we should speak out against it. And I think, and then after that, it's, the minimum is to hate it in your heart. But I think as a minimum, we can speak out here. We've got an opportunity here. And I really want to encourage our listeners, if you go to the MEND website, mend.org.uk, then you can find very simple instructions that you can follow. And every single one of us is incumbent upon us to take on at least that responsibility of speaking out. And tomorrow there's that opportunity there. So whether it's you doing it yourself, encouraging your family and friends, this really is a communal obligation on us to speak out against the genocide which is occurring, especially in the month of Ramadan. We know that at the time, even Rahima mentioned the story on the 17th of Ramadan, how our brothers stood up for themselves and they called for justice and the losses that they suffered. We're in the UK, in comparison, the experiences of Islamophobia that we face here is incomparable to what's happening to our brothers and sisters in China. And we have no right almost to say that, we're going to turn a blind eye or we're not going to do anything. So if you are listening, then I really, really encourage you to take upon the advice that our guests have given us, to visit the web pages, to go on the social media handles. You can go at MEND Community. And Rahima, if they want to get in touch with yourself, what's your social media handle?
It's Mahmut Rahima. At Mahmut Rahima, you can find me on Twitter. And my name, Facebook is Rahima Mahmut. You can find me on Facebook. I post most of the most updated information, important articles, reports you will find. And also if we are having any events, cultural or political, you will find that. And also one more thing during Ramadan, and I know we're all fasting, I ask you to try to boycott Chinese goods. That's the one thing that you can do. I am sure that will have a big impact. So boycott China, at least during Ramadan. We don't want this, the goods that is tainted by Uyghur Muslim forced labor. So let's, try even spend more money to buy things that is made from other countries, just not China. I ask you to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, because the next question I was going to have is beyond tomorrow, and we make dua that tomorrow that the UK government does have the courage to recognize what's happening in China as genocide, and they call it genocide. But that's not going to be the end. That's not going to be the end of the genocide. It's just the beginning, if anything, in the UK. And so you mentioned there about boycotting particular goods from Chinese providers. What other actions do you recommend? And especially for those in our community, like you mentioned, many of us are unaware of the history of the Uyghur Muslims. Where can we learn more about the Muslim community there? And how can we become more educated on this particular issue?
Thank you. So Uyghur Human Rights Project website, World Uyghur Congress, the organization we have, and also if you want to know about youth movement, like a more focused on culture, Tarim Network, TARIM, a Tarim Network. It gives you a lot of information about who are Uyghurs, the language, and also how the Uyghur young Uyghurs are trying to preserve this culture, living in exile. For example, there is one campaign, Saving Uyghur Language campaign, and people can support that as well, raising money to create a Uyghur language curriculum for Uyghurs living in exile. So there are many, if you just type Uyghur, UYGHUR or UIGHUR, and you will find a lot of information on Google, and many reports by BBC, CNN, and on YouTube, there are many personal testimonies. So I believe the personal testimonies can be the most strongest and most powerful truths about what is happening to the Uyghur people. And therefore, to give you support, to tweet these people who are suffering, their tweets. And if you can, for example, have an organization or belong to a certain kind of community, try to organize an event. So invite the Uyghur victims and to share their stories, so more people can join and support to stop this evil.
Yeah, another thing, we're in Ramadan as well. I encourage brothers and sisters to try Uyghur cuisine as well. It's not something maybe you might have tried before. It's just another way to support kind of the Uyghur community in the UK. I believe there's, I think, a number of restaurants in London that people can go to. I don't know if I'm allowed to be plugging businesses on the radio, but yeah, I mean, definitely try the cuisine. But the point I make of that is to immerse yourself and to find out more about what the Muslim community and how widespread the Muslim community is, and this particular nation really needs our support as an ummah. Like I mentioned earlier, when one part of the body hurts, the whole body feels it, and the Muslim community is like the same. We just can't turn a blind eye and remain silent or do nothing. And so today we've heard from Rahima and we've heard from Zishan as well. Simple steps that we can take. It won't take long. Zishan, how long would it take to implement an action of that?
Literally less than 2 minutes.
Yeah. So literally 2 minutes to send a tweet to your MP or send an email to your MP, making sure that tomorrow when the motion take place, what time is the motion being discussed tomorrow?
It will be at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So the earlier the better.
So yeah, so before 1 p.m. tomorrow, if we can get the earlier the better, like Zishan mentioned, just tonight, get that message out and start lobbying your MPs, making sure that tomorrow when that motion occurs, we have a unanimous consensus in regards to recognizing what's happening in China as genocide. And as the hashtag is call it genocide. Spread that hashtag, tweet your MPs, mobilize your communities, make as many Muslims as you know aware of what responsibility we as the UK Muslims have towards our brothers and sisters in China as well. And so with that, I want to thank our guests, Rahima Mahmut and Zishan Ali, for joining us today and for educating us and making us aware of what responsibility we have and what role we can play tomorrow as well. I thank you again for joining our show today. I've been Aman Ali, your host today on Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM. Till next week, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.